Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and in today's video we're going to take a look at some class tuning that is coming on November 14th. I'm going to have some more content that kind of looks just at all the specs and how I think they're going to be doing in the upcoming like Race to World First at high-end Mythic progression, that kind of stuff. Also some content about kind of like what to do to gear your characters in the next couple of days, but I felt like this was a blue post worth singling out because this is kind of the last big adjustment probably that we're going to see here. First of all, Unholy DK is getting some buffs. Death Coil damage going up, Scourge Strike and Clawing Shadows damage going up, the Ghoul damage just going up, Virulent Plague damage going up by quite a bit, and Apocalypse Ghoul damage being increased, although by less than those other things. This is a spec that got sort of some rework over the course of this cycle, moving some damage out of cooldowns and into the core rotation. But the combination of that and the nerf to power infusion was making it look pretty tenuous to actually play Unholy DK in like high-end prog, because it was like, if you want to play this, it looked like, okay, well, I kind of need to power infuse it, but you know, there's already other good stuff to hit the PI on that isn't awful without a PI, which is what it was looking like Unholy was going to end up being. So this is pretty welcome, I think, from the numbers that I was seeing over the past couple days. Vengeance Demon Hunter. So the set bonus for the Mirror set bonus is being nerfed by 20% on the bonus sigil flame damage, and from 20 to 15%, so 25% nerf, I guess, of the parry chance on illuminated sigils as well. So this is a spec that looked really good over the course of PTR. If anything, the only reason that you wouldn't necessarily play it in Raid is like you probably already are playing Havoc Demon Hunters, because those also looked good, so you don't need Chaos Brand. But it looked really sick, especially for M+, and I think it's probably still going to be good here. This doesn't seem like a gutting of the spec or anything. Druid, Guardian buffs. Mangle now grants 12 rage, was 10. Okay, pretty small potatoes buff here for a spec that has been down bad over the course of this PTR cycle. So the last couple changes to Guardian have been good buffs to sort of, basically what they did to Guardian was they hit it with a bunch of big nerfs, but they didn't really address the core problem of Guardian, which was Blood Frenzy. Then they hit that, but then all of the old nerfs were still on the spec. And now they've started to, they kind of figured out how to buff Blood Frenzy back up a little bit without making it dangerous again. And Mangle is getting a little bit of a rage generation increase. You also can get more energy regen in cat form too, so, you know, don't count out the bears just yet. But I think still not a spec I'd be too excited to be maining if I was like a reroller type, like multi-classer person. I think very few of those people will be starting on Guardian this tier. All right, up next is Balanced Druid, which is getting the same cat form energy regen increase, so no actual real change there to them. And Resto Druid is getting some sizable buffs to cat weaving, although some of them, the finisher increases, are not applying in PvP combat. And also the cat form energy regen is being increased as well. So yeah, sizable DPS increase for Restors that I think I had heard they were potentially going to be Moonkin form instead of cat form this tier. I'm not sure if that's actually true, but my suspicion is that with these changes, they will again be cat form if they're looking to do damage. All right, Augmentation Evoker. The amount of utility that Augmentation Evoker brings, on top of its high damage, has proven to be too powerful despite recent changes. Therefore, we are further reducing their damage contributions to the group in order to balance them against other specializations. Ebon Might grants 6.5% of the Evoker's primary stat, was 8%. Closest Clutch Mates increases the effectiveness of Ebon Might and Breath of Aeons by 10%, was 20%, was 40% when it went live. And the amount of versatility granted by Shifting Sands has been reduced by 15%. This is quite a large set of nerfs. The closest Clutch Mage one only applies in M+, right? This is an M+ passive, or like outside of raid, I guess is the more appropriate way to describe closest clutch mates. So that's a moderate buff there, or moderate nerf there. But then 15% reduction on Shifting Sands, and what is this, like 20%-ish off of Ebon Might? So, you know, sizable nerfs to the spec. My suspicion is the spec is still good. The spec was really, really, really good before, and my suspicion is it is still good. I would still expect to see 2 of them in the Race to World First from both Echo and Liquid, but I have a fairly low amount of confidence in that prediction, if that makes sense. This is one of the specs that's kind of hardest to get a read on, because understanding how much damage it's going to do, you've got many more variables, right? Because it's based on buffing other players and not just on your own buttons. So that makes it a little bit harder to guess. But I still expect this is going to be a one of the premium specs in high end content. These nerfs do make it increasingly less exciting to play it in lower end content, right? To play it in less coordinated group settings. And I think that, if they keep along these lines, it either might already be or might be past the point of at that point where it's like, okay, I'm just not going to bother bringing this to, my 5 out of 9 mythic raid, right? Because like, if it's not tuned over, right, like you need to coordinate this with other players, right? You need to kind of be thinking about what other players' CDs are, and if they're screwing stuff up, then you kind of have this multiplicative screwing stuff up, inting your damage by more. Previously, it was worth it to just play the augmentation anyways because they were overtuned as all heck. But if they're only overtuned by a small amount, that might end up actually washing out, and they might end up being worse than a regular spec, worse than just playing Dev, for instance, which looks like it's going to be great this tier. And so, yeah, I would expect to see 2 augmentation in the high end, and then I would expect to see like 0 to 2 as you drop out of the top few guilds, and it'll be based on whether those guilds have players that are good at that want to play aug, whether they have a comp that will that has the space for it, whether they have targets that are reliable for those aug buffs. All right, Frost Mage. So Frost Mage is getting a buff to the single target of their 2-piece, but a nerf to the explosion of it. My suspicion is, I actually don't even know whether this is good or bad news if you're a Frost Mage. Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, it's a single target buff, right? Actually, is it even a single target buff? Does this explosion hit the primary target? If it doesn't, then this is just a nerf on single target as well. So yeah, I don't know. Either way, probably a pretty small tweak there. Brewmaster. Breath of Fire's bonus damage has increased to 40%, was 20%, and the bonus damage to targets affected by Breath of Fire on the 4-piece has been increased to 15%, was 10%. So some Brewmaster damage increases. Brewmaster damage, decent, pretty good even, going up to, it'll probably be one of the good damage tanks as a result of these changes here. Windwalker. Blackout reinforcement granted by melee abilities now occurs 66% more often and increases blackout kick damage by 200%, was 150%. My understanding is that this was such a small amount of power before that even increasing it by a lot is still going to make a relatively weak set bonus. And the increase in proc rate here is also going to introduce more of a problem of munching procs, right? Of having a proc happen that you can't actually spend before you get the next one. So, yeah. I mean, obviously, it is a buff, right? Like, this is good news for Windwalker, but I'm not sure if this is the news that they needed. Ret Pally. All ability damage increased by 3%. So, a very restrained tap upwards for a spec that certainly was looking on the low end damage-wise. But, of course, you do need 2 Paladins in every Mythic raid, so, buffing Ret certainly increases, like they are competing for one of those 2 spots, right? It's not like they're competing for like that last non-raid buff spot against all of the other classes in the game, right? They are initially competing just to be one of the 2 paladins that get in there. So if you're in a raid that only has 1 holy paladin and your tanks don't want to play prop paladin, you're playing a ret paladin, right? Or else you're giving up on ret aura, which no serious guild is going to do that at the high end. So this will be a damage increase for guilds that choose to get their aura through a ret pally. All right, Disc Priest. Disc healing throughput, particularly in raids, is slightly higher than we would like, given their damage and utility contributions to the group. To balance them, we're reducing some talents that are giving a lot of power for only 1 talent point. The goal is to improve talent balance while also bringing them in line with other healers. Seems like a reasonable way to do this, and hopefully this does lead to more builds being more competitive as well, right? Like that, if you can do a nerf that has that effect rather than the opposite effect, that's always good. Divine Aegis Absorption reduced to 5% of healing done, was 10%, a big nerf there, and Inescapable Torment damage reduced by approximately 19%. I always wonder how it happens that we get figures like approximately 19% for some patch notes and then exactly 3 or 5% for some other notes. One of the mysteries to me, but yeah, Disc was looking really good. I expect it's probably still good, but this, particularly the Divine Aegis nerf, is certainly sizable. Rogue Assassination. The 4-piece bonus tooltip should now accurately reflect its actual output, and its damage has been increased on a single target by 4%. So Sim was already also looking kind of good. So unless it was looking good because the tooltip was like way overstating how much damage it was going to do, and we got gaslit, I expect that this is going to be a very solid single target option, and it's especially nice for Rogue because Outlaw is also looking great, and so you can play both of those on the same character, and anytime you can do that, that's a lot of value, right? That's much better than the DPS specs that are locked into one spec, right? If you have two specs that have sort of different damage profiles, you can play different ones on different fights, but use the same gear on the two of them, except for, I guess the stat prior is a little different, and you also you need daggers, and you need a non-dagger one hand as well. But still, it is a powerful thing. Rogue's looking good this tier for sure. Destro Lock. Tier set Flame Rift damage increased by 50%. Unstable Tear damage increased by 5%, Shadowy Tear damage increased by 5%, and Chaos Tear damage increased by 30% as well. So sizable buffs there to the Destro Tears. And I don't know, Warlock was looking kind of mid. Like, Warlock was looking like a spec or class you're going to bring one of for this tier. I don't know if this is enough to help change that at all. Demo. Doombrand single target damage increased by 50%, and the single target damage of Doom Fiend is increased by 40%. And the 2-piece reduces the cooldown of Grimoire Felguard. So this is the Aberrus 2-piece. By 0.5 seconds was 1 second. They really want to make sure that you're not ever in a position where you're like, I should keep my 2-piece from last tier. So they're reducing the power of its previous set bonus to bring it in line with other set bonus from Aberrus. And again, what's not written here, but is definitely true, is that they really don't want you to ever be looking at like a 15 eye level upgrade and into new tier and then say, no, thank you, I like my old tier better. And we're increasing the throughput of both Destruction and Demo set bonuses while increasing the power of Dimensional Rift baseline. So, yeah, seems good. I haven't checked with the Warlocks in my guild yet to see if this is something where they're like, oh yeah, now we're actually, solid instead of something that we were pretty interested in exactly one of. But, whether or not that's true, if you're just a Warlock main, this is, of course, just straight up good news. Yeah, those are the class tuning coming in. So I'll have a video where I talk a little bit about the comps that I think are going to be good in high-end Mythic progression. And I'll also have a video coming out about what you should do to gear and some thoughts on the new upgrade system and the implications of it and how it should affect your decision-making over the first few weeks. And then I'm off to the Race World First in Sweden to cast for Echo. So there'll be some daily recap videos that I'll be doing with Tettles that should be coming out. I'm not sure actually on which channel. Might be over on the GG WoW YouTube, might be here and there. I'm not sure. But that'll be coming out soon as well. Also, if you're interested, I've started another podcast recently called The Potty C with Maximum, Dorky, and we've had some guests like Now and Asmongold on. And that is a pretty cool thing to go check out if you want to have some more WoW content. You can also get it on audio platforms and stuff, but we have a YouTube too. So I'll link that in the description too if you're looking for some more content. Anyways, hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.